Yeah. So I was super interested. I saw actually one of your interviews a few weeks ago, and I was super interested in what you do. I thought it was so cool. I heard a little bit about your story, but I do kind of want to ask you, for people that don't know, kind of what you do, what your background is, and how you got started.
Sure. So I run a company. It's called 3-Day Rule Matchmaking, and we're a personalized matchmaking company. So it's essentially like outsourcing your love life to a matchmaker who takes care of everything for you. I'll explain how it works in a little bit, but I started as a television producer. I worked at E Entertainment on the show True Hollywood Story, and everyone around me was single. And just for fun, I started pairing my coworkers with my friends, and I would sit in my cubicle giving relationship advice, and I loved it. And I realized I had this weird talent in setting people up. All of these couples were happily paired up and getting engaged. So for fun, I started hosting parties, and that way I could pair my friends and my coworkers. And a lot started with about 30 people. Within a few months, we were all coming. So really, it was at that one. I actually went on a date with a guy that I set up shortly after at my. I sat across, and I had found him on Facebook.
Someone, do you say like, "Hey, are you at work?"
Yeah, we walk right up to them. We're ashamed. Say, "Hi, I'm so sorry to interrupt. You know, this is." They say, "Yeah," and they're caught off guard. Sometimes people will say yes right away as an impulse, but they're actually not. And they're like, "Wait, no, I'm actually not." But if they are single, then we just explain, we're matchmakers, and we might have somebody that we think could be a fit for you. Are you open to grabbing coffee or hopping on the phone? And almost always they are. If they're single, they'll do it because we ask marriage to your relationship history and what you're looking for and goals and timeline. So we get a lot of information. And we also get a sense of their energy and their overall vibe. So that way, if we do meet someone out and about and they don't exactly fit the mold of their exes, that we could tell they have swagger, they have a vibe that we know the client will like, then yes, it could definitely still be a match. The interesting thing is, a lot that got married through us told us they swiped on, like, they saw the person online, they decided it wasn't a match. And then we went through the interview and we can get so much more information. We set them up and they went on to get married. So it is definitely a whole package. We have so much more information than you would walking up to someone at a bar. We have a 360 view of who these people are.
Yeah, that's actually a good point with the swiping, which kind of brings me to my next point, is like the online dating with all the, online dating apps. Like, how do you feel about that versus matchmaking?
Well, I think online dating can work. And I think it's great. You have access to millions of people you wouldn't otherwise meet. But first of all, it's time consuming. The average online dater spends 12 hours a week online.
Oh my
So you need
gosh.
to be prepared for that. But also, it will only work if you go in with an open mind. I am very convinced people are swiping right past their soulmate because they are swiping on what's familiar, and familiar is not always what's best for them. So usually they're very quick to judge. And if someone is not perfect, they're swiping left. So I think online dating can work, but you really need to swipe right and be open-minded and know, like, your person might come in a different package than you expect.
So when you send a client a match, do you send them a picture first, or do you just kind of say, go on this date, try it? Like, what do you say to them if, like, for example, they say, no, I don't want to go, something like that, after you show them a picture or whatever?
Yeah, some matchmaking companies match blindly. So they're setting you up on blind dates. We don't. We'll show you photos, we write a bio about them, and we hop on a call and we'll tell them about the match. So usually they have a lot of information. We're on the same team. They can ask us whatever they want. We want to make sure they feel comfortable going into the date. So usually they're thrilled because we've done a lot of work to find this match. We might have interviewed 20, 30 options before we sent them this one person. So usually they're excited to go on the date, but sometimes it's stepping out of their comfort zone a little bit. And so we need to talk it through, and, we'll just explain, I know that he's an inch shorter than what you're looking for, but I met him and he is so genuine and I think he's worth meeting. So sometimes we might have to talk to them through it. We never force anyone to meet the matches. So if they really don't want to, that's okay.
Mhm.
But we really encourage them to, because we've gone through a really thoughtful process.
Do you feel like for the majority of people, they are very focused on like height and age, because I hear that a lot when it comes to dating is people want a specific age or specific height. So do you hear that a lot?
Yeah, definitely. We hear it a lot. Whether like, especially for women, if they're 5'1" or 6 feet tall, everyone's asking for 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
So what we try to help them with, actually, when we interview the matches and the clients to start, we just ask them for everything that, excuse me, everything that they're looking for. And then we help them break it down into 3 must-haves, 3 deal breakers, and 10 nice-to-haves. So we will prioritize it with them and we'll help them. And part of that is to help them figure out, okay, what are the characteristics that are going to matter in 20 years? Mm-hmm. What are like the core values that are really going to make a difference? And let's prioritize those things. So all of their matches will have those must-haves and they won't have the deal breakers. So those are non-negotiables. And then everything outside of that, we'll aim for as many things as possible. But height is an example of something that unless you are 5'10", 6 feet tall, like you probably don't actually need someone 6 feet tall. Like if you break down the numbers, 14% of men in the US are over 6 feet tall. So we assume half are single. So if that is truly a non-negotiable for you, your pool is now 7%. Ooh. And is that really worth it? And then you add on top of that, like Ivy League educated or making a certain amount of money and broad shoulders and perfect teeth. And there might be 5 guys in your city that are an actual match for you. So you just have to be really careful when you add on criteria. It just, the pool gets so much smaller.
Totally.
And ultimately, it really doesn't even make a difference. In 20 years, I bet you'd rather have someone who's really loyal and supportive and adores you than someone who's an inch taller than what you got.
I couldn't agree more with that. So let's say someone goes on a first date and they're like, I don't know, I don't really like them. Do you encourage them to go on a second date and hang out again?
For sure, especially for women. So in like heteronormative couples, if the man, if he comes back and says he's not interested or not attractive, we might nudge him a little bit, but not that much. Usually they know on the first date and they're typically right. The women, the chemistry can grow over time. And we've seen it so many times. So if they come back and they're like remotely attracted to the person and they seem interesting and they're curious a little bit, we'll encourage them to go on a date, because oftentimes it's that second, third, or fourth date where all of a sudden something clicks and now he's the hottest guy in the room. And we see that so often that it just is worth it to at least go on one more date.
So why do you think that is for men versus women? Like women, it takes longer for them to see like a potential partner.
Yeah, why is that? One other interesting thing that I'm noticing, I'm going through all this data of our success stories. Mm-hmm. And what I'm noticing is the guys know right away. So I'm analyzing people who ended up getting married through 3-day rule, and the guys will come back after the date and they're like, I'm smitten. This is it. I'm done. And the girls, it takes longer for them to get there. So I'm not exactly sure, but the men like pretty much know right away if this is their long-term person. And the women, I think maybe are just a little more cautious and perhaps more risk averse, that it just takes them a handful of dates to assess if this is long-term.
So after a date, do they both go to you and tell them kind of the review?
Yes. So after every date, we do post-date feedback. And actually, I think this is the most valuable part of the service. We get the feedback from both sides. And that way we get to learn what our clients are like on a date, and we'll share the information with them, and we're helping them become better daters. Like everyone has blind spots. So we get to share that with the client, and then we'll find out from the match as well. And if there's something that we can share with the match, we definitely will. But as an example, something that comes up pretty often is we'll set up a couple and they will be interested in each other, but they don't know the other person's interested. So at the end of the date, as an example, the woman might say, like, thanks, I had a really nice time. Like, have a great night. And she thinks she's saying, I want to see you again, but that's not how it's translated. He thinks she's not interested. So there's a ton of miscommunication that happens in the first few dates, and it's really helpful to have a third party navigate that.
So have you ever had someone come back from the date and tell you just awful things about the other person and you had to kind of break it to them and tell them what they need to fix?
I wouldn't say people come back with awful things. I
Okay.
can't think of an example of that, but um, sometimes people will come back and say, like, no, this is not my
Mm,
person. And they'll start off negative, but then we ask, can you share three things that you liked about the person? And once they start talking about those three things, it's not quite as negative as they thought from the beginning. Some people, they go on the date and in the second they decide if this is their person or not, and they've come to a conclusion very early on. But once they talk about it, they realize maybe this isn't their person, but it wasn't a terrible date. There are all these qualities that actually could have been a fit.
So how long does it usually take? Like, what is the average amount of dates that someone goes on in order to find a potential match?
So we usually work with people for 3 months or 6 months. And it varies. Sometimes we knock it out of the park on the first match and we're done. And sometimes we have to iterate, get the feedback after every date to make small changes. And it ends up being the last match or maybe a bonus match after the official agreement is over. So there's really no set amount of time, but typically people are finding a partner in that 3 or 6 month period.
Now, is there a commonality with the people that come to you? Do they each have some sort of similar baggage or some sort of similar issue?
Yes. And the issue is that they're busy. So
Got
usually
it.
people who come to us are successful, busy professionals who have established their career and now they're really ready for something serious. And they either don't want to spend 12 hours a week online dating, or maybe they're private and they don't want their employees to see them online, but they'd rather outsource it and take a more efficient path. So the common theme among the people we work with is that they're successful professionals
Got
and
it.
they're ready for commitment.
Okay. So I was going to ask you that, like, are there people sometimes that come to you that they almost seem like they're not ready and you have to turn them away?
Very rarely do people come to us not ready. It's just not worth the headache. Headache is not the right word, but you kind of have to jump through a lot of hoops in order to get on a date with us. So if you're looking for something really casual, go on Tinder. It's so much easier. Where through a matchmaker, you need to go through an interview process, and people are only turning to us when they're ready for something committed. But that said, we don't work with everyone. So in the interview process, when we're meeting with people, if we don't feel that we can deliver based on what they're looking for, if we just don't feel like they're a fit, then we don't work with everyone. So part of the initial meeting is deciding whether or not it's a mutual fit.
Got it. So what are some qualities that you think are super important to look for when you're first beginning to date?
Well, it's pretty nuanced, so it's different for everyone, but I'll tell you what I what a lot of people do ask for these days. A lot of people are asking for a growth mindset, and they'll say like bonus if they've gone to therapy. Like being self-aware and being willing to like learn and grow, like that's huge for people now. A lot of people are asking for financial stability. They want someone not necessarily who can cover them. They just want the person to cover themselves. And then, the other things that are popular that people are asking for is whether they want kids or not, whether there's a specific religion that's important to them. Like usually those are the non-negotiables. Oh, and a lot of people ask for someone with a healthy, active lifestyle.
Ah, yes, that is something that's super important to me as well. And I know that it's different between men and women. So are men asking for a lot different things than women? Because it's important to kind
Yeah.
of understand that aspect.
Men ask for a lot less, I'll say that. So usually they'll ask for someone that they're attracted to, someone passionate about something, but they don't care what it is. It can be yoga, it can be their career, it can be animals. They just want them to be passionate about something. And then usually they'll ask for someone sort of like warm, nurturing, like that type of a personality. And again, it varies. Like in general, that's what the men are asking for. And the women, excuse me, usually ask for financial stability, ambition, someone like who can take charge and plan dates. And then they'll add, kids or a specific religion if it's important to them.
Mhm. Yeah, the list can go on and on when it comes to that. But
And then they ask for perfect teeth and broad shoulders and great family life and yes, all the things.
I know.
Great
I do think that,
style.
yeah, I think that that stuff kind of changes when you realize that not that many people can be your potential match. Like, I don't know if people going
Yes.
into it think that there's going to be 50 people that they can choose from. And then they start to add on like the teeth and the broad shoulders. But then, maybe once they realize that it's not a huge list, maybe that stuff kind of goes away.
Yeah, I think over time and experience, you just start whittling down the list to like kind and supportive and funny. And also in COVID, things changed a lot. So I would say pre-COVID, it was a lot more superficial.
Mm.
And then COVID hit and people really were more focused on something meaningful and the list changed. So it was more about like, who could I quarantine with for a year? What type of person does that look like? And so the list changed. And since then, people have been a lot more open-minded. One interesting thing that we've seen in COVID is people are open long distance, where pre-COVID, they would focus on like a 10-mile radius. Now we have clients matching all over. They're open to nationwide matching since so many people can work remotely. And it has worked really well. We had a ton of COVID marriages.
I actually really like that because I think oftentimes I personally think like, how are you going to find someone within your 10-mile radius that is close to your age range? And like, I'm like, what? Because there's a whole world out there of people that, your soulmate could be in a different country. I mean, even or a different
Yes.
state, that it's like there, it's endless. So I think, yeah, to limit yourself just to your radius is crazy because,
Yeah.
no one knows where their life is going to end up sometimes either.
Exactly. Like the best advice I can give is just to be open-minded, to look up, like you have no idea where your person's going to come from. Like our matchmakers are constantly emailing success stories. We just like to celebrate with each other. And I received one this morning from a matchmaker who her client really was kind of giving up on love, to be honest. Like he had gone through a lot, and he was in a small town. He didn't think his person was ever going to pop up. Long story short, he went to his college reunion and ended up meeting a match, someone that he knew like for years and years, and it didn't even cross his mind like could actually be a match for him. And now they're long distance. They weren't in the same city, but they're in a really happy, like, healthy relationship. And just he did not expect that going back to his reunion.
That is crazy how it could be someone that you knew that you never would have thought anything with. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, they're actually really attractive.
Yes, exactly. I know your person really could be anywhere. Like likely they're around the corner and you just need to look up from your phone and take it all in and just know like it really could be anyone.
That's such a good point. Cause I think a lot of people, that I'm seeing now, they like will go out to a bar, go to a club, and that's where they try to find someone. But it's so true that like just the basic Starbucks run or grocery.
Found out about a friend of a friend who met in line at Jersey Mike's and they got married.
That is the most random place ever.
It's so random, but it just goes to show like, it's great to have a dating portfolio, to use a matchmaker and to go online, but you might meet your person at the gym. You just have to be open-minded.
Yeah. And you have to also, that's so cute. Okay. So now I want to hear your story then, because you're married now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I am married and clearly I'm shameless when you hear the story, but I walked into a holiday party and I was on my way to another holiday party. I was just stopping by to say hi for a few minutes. I walked in and I saw my husband across the room, and I turned to the guy next to me. I was like, who is that? Bring him over here right now. So he went and grabbed my husband, who had no idea what was happening. And I just said, hi, I'm Talia. It's so nice to meet you. How do you know VJ and Summer? And we chit-chatted for a few minutes, sorry. And I had to run to another party. So he said, like, nice talking to you. I'd love to get your number. And I was in such a rush. I said, great. I'm sure someone at the party has it. You can grab it and call me. I have to run. And I ran out. And then a few days later, he called, and that was it. And honestly, was not love at first sight, like right away. It took us a handful of dates. And then I was, it happened to me like it happens to some of our clients, where it took me like 3, 4, 5 dates. And then one day it clicked and I realized this is the person I should marry.
Was there something that he did or said that kind of made it click?
Yeah, he threw me a magazine. It was like an LA magazine with all these restaurants. And he said, circle all the restaurants that you want me to take you to, and we'll do it. I don't know, there was just something in that moment where I thought like, oh, this is the type of person I should marry, someone who cares where I want to go, will make the plans. And he was very kind. And every date I just learned a little more about him. He's an introvert and he's quite shy. So I didn't get to see all the different sides until like 4 or 5 dates in.
So was he the type of person that you thought you would end up with?
Yes,
Okay.
in general, he is. There's one major thing that is a little bit different. Previously, I dated like comedians. I would always go for the really funny guy. Honestly, usually they were like 5'5" and hilarious. That was like always my type. And when I met my husband, he really wasn't that funny. And that was one thing that was like, it was a hang up in the first few dates. And then what happened was he dropped his phone in the pool and he had to email me to tell me that he didn't have his phone. And the email was so funny. And I realized he actually did have a great sense of humor in writing. And then that helped a lot. And he's funny and we share a similar sense of humor, but I didn't get to see that side of him until I got that email.
That is so funny because I think that sense of humor is something that a lot of people look for because they want to laugh with the person and, you know, be best friends with them or whatever. But sometimes you're right. It might not show up in person. It might show up through other.
The whole human. There's so much more to it.
Yeah, totally. I think it's definitely important to give someone a second chance, especially like what you said, if they're introverted. It definitely takes some time to warm up, even months. I've seen even with like friends, it's been, they finally open up to me after like 2 months. So I totally agree there that you'll not see their full personality until you really spend time with them and kind of like get it out of them.
If you think about like a lot of people had met past relationships at work, were you initially attracted to that person on day one? Like probably not. Usually over time you get to know their personality more and you become friends and then you find them attractive.
100%. So going to a business side of this, how many clients did you have initially when you decided like, okay, I'm good to quit my job?
Great question. So I needed to make sure that I could pay my rent. So while I was working at I started taking clients at night, and every time I would take a client, I would increase the price. So I started charging $250. I asked this one guy who was my very first client to bring me $250 in cash at Starbucks, and he did. And that was my first one. And then I charged 500 and then 1,000 and 2,000. So when I left my job, I probably only had about 10 clients. And then after that, and I left, but I had a business partner at the time and she did not leave her job. So I was the only one running the company. Then we went on Shark Tank. And the night that Shark Tank aired, we had 10,000 people that signed up for our pool.
So cool.
So that really, excuse me, that helped like boost the signups, obviously. And then once I had about 40 clients, I went to match.com and I basically said, we have a VIP service that you don't have. Are you interested in partnering in some way? And they ended up investing in 3-Day Rule. And that helped us scale across the country. So today we have about 50 full-time matchmakers across the country, but it took all those steps to get there.
So it's very hard for a company like Match.com to invest in a smaller company. I mean, that you must have been a great saleswoman, but at that point, how many clients would you say or how many signups would you say that you had to then go to them and be like, we want to, bring on this extra thing?
Yeah. I remember we only had about 40 clients.
Oh, wow.
I had only taken in total 40 clients. And maybe at the time I had 15, 20, but I had enough success and I had a different offering that I thought could be like a great complementary service to Match. And they felt the same way. So it wasn't that we had been in business for years and years and made millions of dollars. They just saw the potential in what we were doing.
So once you kind of started to scale it and you started to take on more and more people, obviously you cannot do that all on your own. So did you kind of then start hiring people and taught them how to do it, or how did that work?
Yes. So one of my very early success stories, I found this girl on Facebook. I reached out to her. She was adorable. She went to Harvard Business School. And I asked, are you single? Are you interested in being matched? Long story short, she signed up as a client. and I matched her with her husband. So after that, she came to me and said, like, you changed my life. I want to be a matchmaker. And so she was one of my first hires, where I was training some of my success stories on how to be a matchmaker. And so early, it happened pretty organically that people were interested in matchmaking, and I would train them on how to be a matchmaker. Only recently have we been hiring people who have matchmaking experience, but previously, if you have strong soft skills and you've matched people in your personal life, like, you can be a great matchmaker. You don't need prior matchmaking experience.
Got it. That's super interesting. So did you find that initially doing these events was a great way to get the word out, or was it mostly like your clients would tell other people? Like, how was the best way to go about that?
Well, the events were great just because it would help with brand awareness, where people were learning about 3-day World. When I started, there was no social media. So in order to get 600 people at an event, I was passing out flyers at bars. I was on foot, like, recruiting people. So that's how we ended up getting hundreds of people. So it was great for brand awareness. But at that time, and still today, it's mostly word of mouth. So when you go to a wedding and you ask, how did you meet? And they say through a matchmaker, then all of the people, turn to a matchmaker. I've even been to weddings that I matched, these couples successfully. And they will get on the mic and they'll say, hi, everyone, Talia's at the singles table. I go and chat with her.
Oh, I love that. That's actually a great way to pick up some more clients, is going to a wedding.
Exactly. That's perfect. And they're so rewarding. I mean, the weddings are the best because a lot of we don't think about it day to day, but then you show up to a wedding and you realize none of these people would be here if we didn't match them. And it's the best feeling in the world.
That is so sweet. And I'm sure that most people have been together for a while now, right?
Yeah, we have usually the people get engaged pretty early. I think because people are coming to us already looking for something committed, but it usually takes, 8 months, I would say, on average, for them to get engaged.
That's crazy to me, because I think of now, I feel like people are waiting longer and longer in relationships from what I see. I mean, I don't know. I don't do what you do, but just with friends, I mean, they wait 4 or 5, 6 years to get engaged sometimes. And it's crazy to think that, 6 months, 8 months, they know. But again, if they're with a matchmaker and they have their person after, canceling out all these things that they didn't want, then it's a lot easier to be like, okay, I want to get engaged right now.
Right. And we align them on the most important factors. So you don't have to spend a ton of time getting to know someone when you already know that, like, your timeline is the same and how you feel about family and religion is the same. So it just eliminates, like, some of the time of getting to know each other. And a lot of it is timing. People come to us when they're pretty ready to settle down.
Yeah, I could see that. So now when it comes to picking up clients, do you feel like that you don't have to market as much? It's just kind of people coming to you pretty regularly?
Definitely a lot of people come to us, but we also do some marketing. I mean, not everyone knows about matchmaking. It's a new concept to a lot of people. So we do some marketing on Facebook and Instagram, and we do some press. So try to spread the word in terms of brand awareness. Also, the more people we have in our pool, the bigger our database is, the more options we have for our clients.
Got it. So could anyone sign up as a potential match?
Yes, and it's free. Anyone can sign up. It's 3dayrule.com. You just have to spell it out. It takes a minute to create, like, a basic and private profile, and then you're in the network. And that is all free. And then if you decide you want to be a client, you can work one-on-one with the matchmaker. That starts at $5,900.
Okay. So
there's no pressure.
Got it. So anyone could sign up to be on there, but if you want one-on-one help, that's when you'll use your service.
Exactly.
Cool. So when people sign up for free, are they in a database where other people can see them, kind of like a dating app?
No, it's all private. So the only people who can see the profile is the matchmakers.
Got it.
So if you're in the network for free and we have a client that we think could be a fit, we'll email you photos, a bio, and we'll ask if you're interested in learning more. If you are, we hop on a video call with you and we ask you other questions. We go through an interview process. After that, if we still feel it's a match, then we set you up with our client. And then after, we'll get the feedback from both sides. And that's all free, just to be in the network. You never have to pay. And unless you're interested in working one-on-one with a client, with a matchmaker.
I like that concept. And that makes it obviously better for the wide range of people to kind of sign up and, learn more about what's going on in the network and what it's about. So what does your day-to-day look like now?
So in 2019, I sold the company and someone else stepped in as CEO. So now I'm president. That's my new title. And half of my day is spent interviewing singles, which is so fun. Now I'm back to doing what I love to do. And so I do a lot of the intake meetings when someone signs up in the network. I will learn all about them and what they're looking for in a partner, and also just decide if I think we can deliver. So I spend half of my time doing that. And then the other half just working with the team and helping the matchmakers and come up with matches behind the scene and technology. And we do a lot of like culture related events within the company. Since we're all remote, it's just really important that we stay in touch with each other. So we do a lot of like team building. So I spend half of my time doing that.
Is your favorite thing to do now the interview process?
I love it. It never gets old. Everyone is so interesting and unique. And I feel like I have the best job in the world. So I love the interview process. I love helping the matchmakers with matches. I mean, I'm very in the weeds and I know what's happening with all the clients and what's happening on the date. So I really enjoy doing the matchmaking as well behind the scenes.
And is this any age range, or does it go from a specific age?
It's pretty wide. We work with 20s to 80s.
Oh, to 80s. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. We have the cutest success story right now. It's a 71-year-old and a 74-year-old. And she was in Santa Monica. She was in California and he was in Arizona. And they flew back and forth a couple times, had an immediate connection, and now they're traveling the world together and they are adorable. And their matchmaker's name was Quinn. And so every time they go out to dinner, they cheers to Quinn. It's so sweet.
That's amazing.
So yes, we work with 20 to 80. We have an LGBTQ division. So we work with a pretty wide range of people.
Oh, that's amazing. So what are you working on next? Now that you're the president, what's kind of like your next goal for all of this?
Well, we're launching more cities. So we're just opening now Miami and Dallas, and we're only in 12 cities across the country. So there are just more cities that we should be in. And we're expanding our VIP division. And then we also recently launched date coaching. So we just have a wide range of services that people can sign up for. But we want global expansion eventually, but we're going to just try to get into as many cities now in the US.
Yeah. And how many years has it been now?
12 years.
12 years. Oh my gosh. So how long did it take to start, hiring a team and kind of have things more in their hands versus yours?
Well, we originally launched in LA and we had a handful of people. And then we slowly started adding cities. So we added SF and then New York and Boston. And so that took a few years in order to launch all of those cities. Now we're nationwide. And as I mentioned before, we have about 50 employees. So we were launching a couple cities a year. It wasn't super fast, but there's a lot that goes into launching a new market.
Well, now you're 12 years in and killing it. So that's amazing. So you've definitely done a good job.
Thank you. It's so fun.
Oh yeah, it seems like, and it seems like you're really passionate about it, which I love to hear that always. So what is your biggest piece of relationship advice that you have for new relationships?
New relationships, just make sure you are clearly communicating with each other. I've seen countless situations where there's miscommunication, and without a matchmaker, like they would not have made it. A lot of our success stories had something in the beginning that we had to help them through. So clear communication, like as clear as possible. And the example that I gave before, like saying at the end of the date, like, thank you, I had a nice time. That is not enough. You need to say, thank you, I really enjoyed meeting you and I'd love to see you again, or I'd love to do this another time, or let's hang out again. Like very clear, at least in the beginning stages while you're getting to know each other.
Hope everyone heard that. Be upfront and honest. Number one.
Yes. And if you're not interested, let them know. Like ghosting should not be a thing. It's okay. You're not going to You don't need 100 husbands. You need one. And so anyone that doesn't fit the mold, like it's okay to let them know.
I couldn't agree more. And don't ghost, because I cannot stand when people get ghosted. Just be upfront.
Yes, then you're relieved instead of anxious. It's all positive.
100%. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me, and go ahead and plug your social media and the website and everything
Oh,
again.
sure. It's all at 3-Day Rule. So TreeDayrule. That's all of our social handles are that. And the website is the same.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Talia.
Thank you.